she completed everything. Instead of sending it to another party else or something, she sent
Right.
it back to Jim.
You said Senate.
Where I was. I went to the certified. He knows a lot.
Oh.
I know a lot of people.
Oh, I know.
Were they discussing?
I know. He's been a guy for
My
about
ear to the door.
30 years.
Unfamiliar voices.
But you've been doing all of it. Do you get a lot of pressure on the kids? Just something that-
Yes, we got a lot this weekend. You know, we have this beautiful weekend like this.
That's a good spot to swim.
Hi, this is Ed Alec.
Hi, Ed. This is Colleen Brannon calling from the College Council meeting. Welcome.
Thank you.
We are just, we're close to starting time, but just wanted to get you on the line and make sure you could hear. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, sure.
Great. We're going to start momentarily.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, welcome everyone. I'll call to order the September 23rd, 2019 SUNY Oneonta College Council meeting. First order of business, entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes of April 18.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Additions, subtractions, revisions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No objections. The minutes are approved. I will defer my report and move to the Provost's report, academic priorities.
It's the president,
No, she's
isn't it?
next.
Ah,
You get to go.
I had a different agenda than she's in. You could introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
That's
should
okay.
introduce you, but I don't know how to say your name, so maybe you should
No.
introduce yourself.
No problem, it's a hard one. Limor Kahano. I'm still calling myself the new provost. Started back in July, and at that point in time, took a look at where we were as far as compliance and direction from the academic affairs division, and came up with, in conjunction with deans and some consultation with Senate steering, a priority list of what we are going to do this year. Most of it is compliance to ensure that we're ready for our middle states review. Also that we're in some federal compliance, some backlog of some items that we probably should clean up. And so that's what this priority list is. The intent of this was to be as transparent as possible with our faculty and staff so they knew exactly what we were going to do this year. And the intention is, barring external factors, not to go back to the faculty and staff and ask them to do more and additional items. Primarily, we're going to be focusing on making sure we have ADA compliance with course instruction components, that we have a continuous improvement plan in place, that we complete the course renumbering that was started last year and approved last year, that we are in process to hit our 2022 deadline, that we have our distance learning policy, which is, we don't currently have a policy, which is required for our middle states visit. Our tenure and promotion guidelines, that the departments start working on the criteria for those. That we have our patch for the general education requirements. We know that there's going to be some SUNY revision of the general education requirements, so we're looking at just creating a patch now for some of the pieces that we need for, that we're not in compliance. And then work on our open access policy. In addition to those, this year we plan on benchmarking our academic programs to determine relevance with our programs and where we are regionally and nationally with those programs, and also assess some potential new programs so that we can plan, hopefully, if we get through our RFP process and select a external vendor, that we can have them do the majority of the benchmarking so that we can plan late in the spring for the direction we want to take for 2020, 2021. At the same time, these are components that administratively we're implementing digital measures so that we have a scholarly and creative activity reporting process that is a little more fluid than the hand paper process that we're currently using, that we review our calendar and use our faculty awards that we have right now, our scholarship award, and add some teaching award to help recognize the faculty that have innovative pedagogy. So those are the additional components that we'll be working on this year.
Questions?
When does the middle states review start again?
2022?
2022.
Well, it seems to me each one of those could be the subject of a full meeting, so I'm not going to ask you about each of them, but I am curious about the course renumbering. I seem to recall that we had a briefing on that a couple of years ago now, probably. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is that all about?
Sure. So if I understand correctly, to date, we have, our course renumbering has been in the 100s. And we're running out of numbers. We also don't have a multitude of 400 level classes, so we're moving to a 4-digit system. So 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 for graduate, 5,000, 6,000 and above. And in doing that, we are also asking that the programs reassess and rescaffold their curriculum to realign and be thoughtful about renumbering. We put forth this early in the semester a process for renumbering to assist the departments. They are going to be renumbering this fall and spring and doing that process and submitting back through the curriculum process for review next fall to be completed by, I believe it's March 2021, so that there's almost 18 months for, a little less than 18 months, for the registrar to recode the catalog, which takes about that long.
So are you suggesting there is no longer going to be Sociology 101 here at Oneonta?
Yes, 1,101. You got it.
Wow. Okay. Any other questions?
I have something in the packet about, I'm not sure who's going to speak on it, about adjunct professors having a greater opportunity.
I'm talking about that.
Okay.
Anything more for the provost?
Can the provost just give us a 2-minute or a 5-minute resume of yourself or background? A little bit.
Boy, that's, what parts?
The good
Just
parts.
5 minutes.
All the good parts.
All the good parts? How about we stick to career? Does that work? External to that, I'm a hiker and a kayaker and like the outdoors, so this area is wonderful for me. But this is, before here, I was Dean of the Health Sciences, where my responsibility coming in was really to expand that area as the premier college for the institution, and we took it from a very small college to national online programs, and we went from roughly 1,000 students to 3,000 in the amount of time I was there. So that's really what I did there. I did something very similar at a state institution, Indiana State, and before that I was out in California for about 20 years as a faculty member in athletic training and sports medicine.
Thank you. That wasn't 5 minutes.
You
That was
treated
good.
I got my elevator speech down.
Very
I'm,
good.
compact.
Very good. Madam President.
All right. So you brought up the MOU. In your packet, you'll see our announcement of this. The MOU between UUP and management actually predated my arrival. The conversations had begun with regards to really title and in some case salary The UUP contract itself at the statewide addressed some of the salary issues with regards to adjuncts. But what was still lacking was long-term adjuncts that we have that have taught and been part of our community for many years don't get the respect of title and those ability to have a little bump extra for their longevity and their commitment here. And so this recognizes our long-term adjuncts that have the appropriate degree and credentials in their fields to gain that recognition of title, and then a small salary bump as well with regards to if they go from assistant adjunct professor to associate adjunct professor and adjunct professor. So again, commitment to that. So we feel that we're the first in the SUNY system and to do this. So we're kind of setting the bar and really making that commitment to our adjunct staff. And I think we're setting a good example for recognizing our teaching staff that have been here for a long time.
How many people would that impact, roughly?
We expect in the first go, we probably expect that we might have between 80 and 100 that would be applying for the assistant professor. And then it trickles down from that. Those actually getting to associate and full, we don't expect very many over the time period of that, but at any given time, maybe 100 are adjunct faculty.
That's good.
And that is something that is relatively unique to campuses, that we have a committed adjunct staff here, and that's very good for our students. Daniel, did you have a question?
Me?
Yeah?
No, as you know, that's new. I'm wondering how that affects some of the retired professors who stay on as adjuncts. Would they still maintain their same title they had before, or how would that work?
Retired faculty usually are emeritus, so they
Right.
they actually have a bigger title already.
Well, yeah, not all of them can have emeritus though, because there's certain restrictions for emeritus.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that it impact that some the retiree part you maintain your retired status.
How much did it cost?
Well, we anticipate, or we saved or put about $150,000 annually to budget in salaries.
So that's to cover the bumps in salary?
Yeah, the bumps in salaries.
Anything else on this point?
On that point. The next is an update on our emergency services building. That we've gone out to bid, so we're waiting for all those bids to come in. We hope to have the bids come in so we can have a groundbreaking somewhere at the beginning of the first of the year. And it will be about a 14-month project, so maybe year to year, just over a year and a half. And so if we can move forward, that would be by the beginning of 21 that we would have, is that right? 21, fall 21, that we would have the new emergency services building. It will be new construction. It will, in terms of the conservation based, it's going to be located on the campus where the banana lot is, right above Clinton Street. So that's where the location of the building is. At this time, We did not get funding from the legislature in terms of earmark money. We are writing for some grants, but the budget committee recommended and I approved, at least from our reserves, about a $3.2 million allotment that we're holding for the building. And that's about half of the building itself is scheduled at about 6.2. So we're excited about that. So more to come when we actually get to the groundbreaking. And then I want to give.
Who's going to name the building after?
Well, if you give, $5-10 million.
She's pretty smart. Figure that out.
Don't give that away. That's the only thing we have left to do. in the statute.
That's right.
Yes.
So the emergency services building is not going to house OSIS?
It will. It'll have the UPD and as well as OSIS as well, and the training facility as well.
So the top of Clinton, is that where they were going to put some dorms there a few years ago?
Townhouses.
Townhouses, right? Okay. So off that parking lot?
Yeah.
Is there funding for the moving the School of Economics and Business and college advancement all in that building? Is it?
So that would be the next phase. So this was the first phase to move them out so that we could do the renovation of Alumni Hall. So we're in the queue at this point, so we wanted to stay in that queue. So we've got the project plans, but you don't get the funding until you're ready to move to that level. So Julie.
It will, the state budget will have an impact on that, certainly. It's in SUNY's, the construction fund for SUNY, it's in their plans, but, so much relies on the state budget. So we can't say that it's 100% that it will be funded, but we're really hopeful and thinking that it will.
Being in the queue is the important thing, and then getting, I think, our commitment to doing this building and funding this building without, the state funding coming from the legislature or SUNY at this point in time shows our commitment to this first phase to getting the second phase done. Hopeful. And then I want to give kudos to our advancement team and Paul and his team. So the College Foundation is again top among U.S. charities. We continue, our endowment is the largest of any of the SUNY comprehensives. And so I just really appreciate Paul, his leadership, and the staff. I always say that Paul is the one person that comes in my office and gives me work to do. And keeps my calendar very busy and lively. So thanks to, again, all your generosity and commitment, but it's really good accolades that we're being recognized for the work that we're doing. That's my report. Unless you have any other
Congratulations.
questions.
Thank you.
It's great.
More to come. Including naming opportunities. How's that?
There we go. Beautiful. Okay.
You like that, right, Beth?
Yeah. Well, it's been a busy 4 months in Lake Wobegon up the highway. I think the main thing I want to talk about is the move of Beth Garvey from SUNY General Counsel to Counsel to Governor Cuomo. She made that move at the end of August and will share the role, I guess, with a woman named Kamiki Gibson. Beth will be doing the legislative work for the governor. As some of you may know, she comes out of that world. She was counsel to the Senate majority for several years before going to SUNY. I think that is fantastic news for SUNY. Beth understands some of the challenges, having been the general counsel there. And it may actually be good news for the college councils around the state, because we've struggled to get the governor's office attention to get appointments made in a timely fashion to the college council. We've done pretty well here, but other schools have really suffered. So I think Beth understands that issue and is somebody that may be sympathetic to the begging of SUNY and some of its colleges. So I think all in all, a great career move for Beth, but a good thing for us too. The legislative session is anticipated to be shorter than usual this next session. It is a political year, an election year, and the primary is earlier than it has been in several years, and just the political calendar may dictate a shorter legislative calendar. The practical impact of that is that I would guess that almost everything of substance will be jammed into the budget and in those negotiations, so that and a lot of SUNY's work and initiatives are in the budget anyway, but I think this year there will be quite a bit of compression with the calendar, and that will force pretty much all of the major decisions to be made by March 31st. So plan accordingly, I guess. The governor says there is a deficit, structural deficit. The comptroller doesn't particularly agree. So over the fall, I assume they will be hashing that out and figure out what the real numbers are going into the budget cycle. I know the governor's office and the budget division are even now hard at work putting the budget together, which is a little earlier than usual. So just anticipate things happening earlier than we may all be used to. So that's my report from Albany.
What are the major issues you see the legislature dealing with?
Well, I think that there is a real impasse on infrastructure, and the MTA, as you've all read, is a mess and a very difficult problem, and those issues spill over into the suburbs. And it used to be back 30 years ago when I was doing this on the inside, it was a rough formula. Whatever the MTA got, upstate got for roads and bridges. So it was generally a rough kind of formula. That formula has been completely exploded, And the needs of the MTA are so great that it's really going to be a challenge to figure out how to prioritize those needs and how to pay for them without alienating suburban senators and upstate senators, but mainly Long Island and Westchester. So it's going to be a real challenge, You know, it's an election year, so they want to spend, and that's usually good news for us, so we'll see. Okay, let's move on to number 5 on our agenda. I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the 2018-19 College Council Annual Report. You all should have received this.
It's in your packets.
In your
It's in the
packet.
folders.
Did I hear a motion here? Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Jeff. Any additions, changes, deletions, misspellings, typos? We have to send this along to get graded by SUNY, so I want to make sure it's perfect. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The report is approved. Okay. We move on to item number 6, the enrollment management report.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring some documents around. I've got 4 documents for you today. Let's start here. One of each, please. Our report today for you all is a numbers-heavy report today. While that's going around, let me explain the documents that you'll be seeing. You'll be seeing a couple of charts with a lot of numbers on there and some additional information here. That is information that our admissions team is working with. So let me give this a moment to work its way around. And before I begin to characterize our enrollment for the fall, we find ourselves here in this September meeting at the very tail end of all of our efforts from the past about 18 months leading up to the enrolling the class of this fall, freshmen and transfer students. And our admissions teams are beginning their work already, have already begun their work for the fall of 2020. So as we look into this next academic year, our admissions teams are already looking into the following academic year, and that's just kind of the cadence and whatnot. So let's start with, I think this one's coming around. Let's start with this document right here. It's the one with a lot of numbers in the middle of the page here. And let me explain what's going on here, just to make sure everybody understands what's going on here. What you have here is a grid that shows our enrollment going back to the fall semester of 2012. The number at the top there is a code that we use in our student information system. So the column on the very far right represents enrollment numbers for this semester. So we have a total of 6,060 undergraduate students enrolled this fall semester. And these numbers are unofficial at this point. Our official enrollment numbers have not gone into SUNY just yet, so these may change a little bit, and they do change somewhat every day as students work on some things. So I want you to also pay attention to this document right here at the same time that we're looking at these numbers. And I want you to pay attention to the green column in the middle of the page that says target at the top, going all the way to the bottom. So 6,060 total undergraduates, and this just represents this sheet here represents undergraduates only. 6,060 total enrolled undergraduates represents a number that's a little bit shy of what our target was for this semester at 6,204. You'll see that at the bottom of the page there. Breaking that down a little bit, we hit our new student enrollment target almost exactly and the new student enrollment target being 1,860 at the top there. We ended up with 1,855 in the midst of some volatility amongst our incoming students. You'll see that on this sheet here that there's a big difference between the number of incoming freshmen and the number of incoming transfer students compared to last year. And the reason for that is we had quite a few students that, I don't want to say last minute, but they informed us of their decision to attend here very, very near our May 1st deposit deadline. And so that number shot up for us, and so we intentionally dialed back the number of transfer students that we were aspiring to enroll this fall, really due to space issues, space in the residence halls and classrooms and things like that, so avoid overwhelming some of our existing infrastructure. So all in all, again,
So
we
basically, you just told me that you have new freshmen, right, coming in, and you got too many, so therefore you said the transfer students from fellow SUNY campuses were reduced.
correct. Not necessarily from
That's
fellow
not really
student campuses.
sounded really good. I mean, just hearing what you're saying. You're saying. That's what you just said.
Correct.
Why isn't that good? Why are you saying it
Because
doesn't sound good?
we're an institution,
Yeah.
all of SUNY. And he just said that SUNY transfer students were reduced because they were bringing in new freshmen.
But don't we want to bring in new freshmen?
We want to continue having a SUNY system, and we want the system, the 2-year people in the system, to go to the 4-year people in the system, and we just reduced that.
But we'd also like the people from the high schools in the state to come to SUNY.
I'm just saying. What he
So
said.
it's a balance, right?
Well, I don't know. I
They
mean,
probably
that's
would
what
go
I mean.
to other SUNY schools, other 4 years, they would have been admitted, the transfer students, they just weren't admitted here, so they could have gone to
You're right.
institutions that actually
Need
might need the
students.
enrollment more than we do in some ways.
And to expound on the,
Sorry,
on the
I
reasons
don't mean to take
for
at you.
dialing. No, that's all right. That's what we're here for. To expound on the reasons for dialing in that number at 1860. We have both residence hall capacity concerns to attend to, as well as instructional capacity concerns. We mentioned our adjunct instructors over there. If we have far too many freshman students, we may not have the instructors to teach the courses that they need. In addition to that, if we have too many transfer students and no residence hall capacity, that forces those students really into housing that's in the community, which there are also capacity issues. We double checked with a number of housing providers in the area, and while there's some capacity, we need to be careful not to overwhelm our community with too many students. It's certainly an art, not necessarily a science. But I think the concern for having places for SUNY students to go is valid, and I think that's just from my own perspective, that's a system sort of if we are out of capacity, where then do these students go?
Well, do you have a strategic plan for enrollment that includes a certain number of transfer students, or is it just, again, dependent on?
We do. This one right here is the numbers-driven approach, where you can see that we are targeting in the out years in the blue a certain number of transfer students. However, transfer students tend to become kind of a relief valve, and so if we end up with more freshmen than what we had anticipated, in order to manage our capacity issues, we'll make adjustment to transfer students, and the reason for that is not because of they're a different sort of category of student, or they're lesser than freshmen, or in any way, shape, or form. It's because those transfer enrollments tend to materialize later in the cycle than freshmen. They're still happening in the summer and whatnot, and so they're the ones where the question is still out: are you going to attend? And they're the only ones that, by the time we get to say June, where we have the ability to sort of move the dials. Excellent question. So, back to undergraduate enrollment. The number I think that's probably of concern to us most is well, let me back up. So we did hit our new student target almost right on, and felt that was an accomplishment for our admissions and our transfer team because of the volatility in the system. We had a number of SUNY schools who had trouble making their enrollment targets, and at the last minute began accepting students from their wait lists and whatnot. And we took a look at that, and anecdotally, I think the largest group of students that we lost between deposit and here in terms of were students that were going to other SUNY institutions like Binghamton. So students that other institutions were pulling off of their wait list, where that was the desire. So we were, in that regard, a second choice option for those students. And so we,
Question.
yes.
But those numbers didn't impact our universe as much as you would think, because you've got a center, a center group, you've got a group you know is going to return, and you're planning you can afford to lose, 30 or 40, even though each one of them looks good because they're a Binghamton applicant or an Albany applicant or something like that. But as long as we are still completing the universe that we've planned out and are able to do that with a little bit of flexibility or more, then we do it, and we should do it. And I don't think we should worry about a greater universe out in the SUNY world, but we should certainly worry about ourselves and those that are pulling from us, no matter how small.
Yeah, indeed, you're exactly right. It does impact a lot of our planning. There's countless hours behind the scenes speculating on what one group of student may or may not do. And what I will mention is of those students who deposited this year, we did see an increased summer melt. The number of students who ultimately weren't enrolled here in the fall, that ticked up quite a bit this year, from roughly 4% to roughly 6% melt. So we're playing those numbers as well, hoping to hit that number right on. And we got pretty close this year, to your point, close enough, within 5 students of our target. So we're feeling like that. We're feeling pretty good about that, because there are other institutions that are not in that situation at all. So we're feeling very good. So of greater concern, I think, for us going forward and looking to the future is that returning, the continuing undergraduate number. And in here I'm lumping both readmit students, 22, and continuing undergraduates, 4183, for a total of 4205. That number, if you look over to the colorful sheet here, we were expecting 4344, so we missed on our returning student number by about 140 students. So 140 fewer students than we expected to return based on some projection models that I built that are heavily weighted on our past performance for continuing students. We missed by 140. What that means is it's for me as an enrollment manager, it's just growing harder and harder to predict which students are going to return. There's additional volatility and whatnot, and we need to be on top of that. There's other implications as well as as we sort of disaggregate that group and begin to figure out who it was that didn't return that we expected to return and why. That certainly, I think, will likely inform many number of conversations about what we may or may not desire to do about that going forward, and that I'm certain will be a community-wide discussion led by our colleagues, President and Provost.
Do you know of the group that didn't return, how many didn't return to school at all?
I don't know at this point in time. Likely what's going to happen is we're going to sit tight while these numbers continue to move, and once our official enrollment numbers go into SUNY, which ends up being the information that is sort of captured in SUNY's data analytics system, we'll be able to then build cohorts of students that we can then study. I know that just recently we've begun to send some queries out through the National Student Clearinghouse, and perhaps Dr. Snyder can speak more to this, to get information back to I think ascertain that very thing. But I don't know that we've had the opportunity to do enough analysis on that to say one way or the other what's going on there.
And I'll just add, this is a major initiative this fall that we'll be undertaking is a detailed retention study. Now that we've hired a director of institutional research and we have a senior research analyst, so we actually have staff to be able to undertake a really systematic way of looking at retention, persistence, and graduation. And that will help us inform some of the decision-making that will look towards student services and our admissions strategies as well as retention strategies. So.
My calculation is roughly 3%. What was it last year?
3%.
I mean, the way I calculated it is 140 divided by 4344, right?
Yeah, but you don't know that 140, they could be people that graduated early, that they weren't all
Right.
first-year students. So that some of those 140 could be success stories.
Correct. And that 140 is relative to a target that we set, which was an aspirational number. Yeah.
We told.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The but you said it was a different prediction than previous year. Is it going to get worse? You said.
I wouldn't characterize it as
I mean,
worse.
what I'm saying is you know, I don't know what the history is. So if you just one plot doesn't tell me the thing. I need to know.
Right.
Give me some history.
Right. I would say at this point we do not know enough about those students who did not return to be able to characterize it as positive, negative. It's very likely that there's a number of students within that pool that simply moved through their degree program more efficiently than they have in the past and graduated early. I'm certain there's a slice of students that are that way. There are probably some students in there who did not return because of financial difficulty. We do know that demographically, more and more of our students are from lower socioeconomic bands, and so there may be some impact there. We need to slice and dice the numbers.
I don't have enough data to get excited or not excited.
We'll know this
Lisa?
hopefully by our next
Don't get
meeting, we'll
excited.
actually have a very thorough report that we can give you that actually gives historical data and context and things like this. Because right now, this is just a number.
Right.
Indeed. On the any more questions about undergraduate? I'm going to switch over to graduate. Really quick.
Do you know what SUNY comprehensives are struggling? When you said a bunch didn't meet their targets, you know.
This is all anecdotal, so we hear through all the grapevines, and which in a system like this, some of them work very efficiently, but not necessarily very accurately. So we hear things all over the place and whatnot. And so the latest thing that I heard was that amongst the comprehensives, ourselves and Cortland, we're doing just fine. We also heard that I think Geneseo had to make some pretty some adjustments that they probably don't like. I'll say that. Same thing with Oswego, and you may have and Fredonia. You may have some more information as you. Yeah. So yeah, I think the overall picture, and this is part of the reason that I think it's important to maybe wait for some of this official stuff to go into SUNY, because then we'll be able to see what's going on with some of the other SUNYs just in terms of numbers. We won't be able to sort of characterize how they feel about how they're ended up, but we'll be able to see numbers. And Daniel, to your point, this is where I think some of the competitive dynamics within the state are going to be, interesting over the next 4 to 5 years. As it's harder and harder to enroll traditional age students, and we're an institution that, our bread and butter is traditional age students. There's likely to be additional volatility as we saw this year, and it's going to become harder and harder to, hit those numbers right on, which means that we've got to be, on top of our sort of tolerances, the flexibilities and whatnot, and that's requires a lot of, I think, internal communication and a lot of planning that goes
how many, I'm not real smart, so you have to explain things to me, so what percentage of them do you turn down? We accepted 660 or something like that, you said, right? Did we turn down 3,000?
We accept about half of all the students that apply. Yep.
So,
and that number fluctuates,
yeah.
above that 50, above and below that 50%, depending on what we're trying to hit and the nature of the application pool.
So worst comes to worst, you could just drop the SATs a little bit or something and still make your mark, right?
Correct, and I think
let's just say it the way it is.
I think that's exactly what may have happened at Geneseo.
Right. Right.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just wanting to know how the magnitude, how big
Do you have a breakdown of where the students come from?
We do. I did not bring that for this presentation now, but we can certainly get that out to you by email.
Thanks.
That would be interesting to me. I don't.
Yeah, you've done that. Just like to look at my hometown.
Well,
we typically break it down by county.
Yeah.
Does that work?
Yes.
On the graduate side, we actually exceeded our targets, although the nature of our graduate students is shifting. We were hoping for about 385 total graduate students, and ended up with 446. That trend is unlikely to continue because of a shift in the enrollment pattern in one of our largest graduate programs within the education area. So we'll likely see that number tail off a little bit, unless we do some different things with those graduate programs. But that, in terms of overall revenue, exceeding our graduate target certainly helps the issue. There's a little bit. I will say also that the numbers that you're looking at here are head count, and there are a certain number of students within that continuing area that are only enrolled in one credit, which is very typical, within graduate spaces for continuous enrollment. So the breakdown of how many of those students are in there versus how many are half-time or part-time and full-time is also important from a revenue standpoint. So all in all, from an enrollment standpoint, we are in a healthy position, especially relative to many of our counterparts within the SUNY system. And I think what that does is that it changes a lot of discussions for us about what we can do. And I think that for many of our colleagues at other SUNY campuses, the discussions that they're having around tables like this are the things that they're going to have to stop doing. And I think we're in a great spot for a lot of reasons that you've heard already today, where we get to have conversations about what we can do, what we should do, and what opportunities are out there rather than the opposite. So I'm very happy about that. Let me shift your attention to this document right here and point out some features. This is the document that it's one of many documents that our admissions teams are using out with high schools right now. I will point to this section along the side here and note that these are not fall 2019 numbers, this is 2018 numbers. The reason for that is most of the consumer information that's available out on the web, iPads, the College Navigator, things like that, the last set of data that's been published for students who are using those resources, as well as all resources, which is a lot, that connect to those data sets, use basically a set 1 year removed. So we intentionally use 1 year removed. However, this section right here, freshman class by the numbers, this characterizes the freshman class that we just spoke about. And you'll see that our numbers remain strong and very, very similar to what we've seen in past years. And with that,
The student to faculty ratio on this chart, does that include adjunct faculty?
I do not know the answer to that question. This is a number that I think we've measured from time to time, and I think the last time was that number was measured was fall 2018. I do not know what was included in that.
Generally, if it's an iPads number, it generally includes adjuncts. I'm assuming it's the iPads.
Do we know where we are with the high school graduates in New York State? Has that number bottomed out, or is it starting to come back up? Where are we?
In terms of what's been projected, we will begin a decade of decline in 2022. So we're essentially at a level right now where it's flat. It's going to waver up and down from year to year, but starting in about 2022, 2023, it's expected to decline for a whole decade. Right, which will put some pressure on institutions like us.
Oh, I think that's an opportunity for us. I think that's a fantastic opportunity for us. We already turned out 50% of our folks, so that's not an issue. Another opportunity is to get more international folks in here, increase our income. So we have a great opportunity.
I do have an international note for you. I was making
You
sure I
know what's coming,
prepared.
huh?
Yeah. We've this fall we enrolled in terms of new students. We enrolled almost exactly the same number as we did last fall. Very, very modest, 12, I think. However, the mix between those students in terms of transfer students and freshmen truly coming from overseas who weren't already here is vastly different. We enrolled a greater number of international transfer students from other schools, likely in SUNY. While the number of international students, I think we only enrolled 2. So we had similar numbers of applications, but they did not take us up on the acceptance.
Not particularly welcoming to new immigrants here.
That was my point.
That might.
You figured that out, Zachary.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joe, I think you're up. Number 7, College Council Vice Chair selection. Is that you?
I don't know.
That sounds like him.
Could be.
Not a deal.
All those in favor of Joe continuing as the Vice Chair?
So moved.
I'm not going to say anything.
You're not going to say anything? No.
Sorry.
Okay. We actually do need a motion.
I'd like to make the motion if that's appropriate.
Are you going to move that Joe be the Vice Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Come on. No,
Thank you.
no one's opposed. Congratulations, Joe. Thank you. See, our ACT representative has left us. Do you have her report?
I do have her report, and I also think that she's willing to continue serving if someone wants to make that nomination.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, so. Good. Can you-
Diane had to leave for another committee meeting, and she'll be back for the lecture tonight, so she asked me to share some information from ACT. The first is that we had 2 student nominations, one Megan Joseph for the Zinfer Award, and the second is an ACT for Excellence in Student Initiative Award, and that the nomination was prepared for Rosario Rodriguez. Unfortunately, neither student were approved, but she asked me to specifically mention that Rosario's nomination was very highly considered. So that's great. She asked that, Patrick, she asked if you would, as in previous years, send a letter commending the students, so we can take care of that this week. And she also asked that I mention the ACT conference for those of you who are registered. It's October 18th to the 20th at the Otisaba Hotel in Cooperstown. And we're having some really terrific student engagement. I may have mentioned this at another meeting before. We have a student jazz ensemble at the cocktail hour Friday evening. And we also have something that's new for us, which I'm excited about, and that is that the lake management program, the biology program, and the museum studies program will be having their students there to engage with all the council members from across SUNY. So we'll have a cocktail hour. People will be able to get something to drink and eat, and wander around and engage with students and learn about those 3 programs. So SUNY is
Where's that
very.
going to be?
It will be at the building where the Cooperstown Museum Studies program resides and the biological field station. I couldn't tell you the address, but.
No, I don't mean the address. I already know where it's going to be. You didn't tell everybody else.
Okay, and we're going to get you all there on a trolley from the Otesaga because it's very nearby.
Cool.
So we're excited about that engagement. We hope that you'll take the time to come at the conference. Our provost will be joining us, and also our president and our college council chair, Patrick Brown, will be presenting on
The search.
the presidential search process, correct? And that will happen, I think, on Saturday morning, but I don't have a final schedule to know the
10:45.
time.
10:45.
10:45. So.
And I'm presenting too.
Are you, I didn't know that, Dan.
Yeah.
What are you presenting on?
Well, I'm on a panel. We're on a panel, right?
Are we? Am I in another panel besides the search?
No, I got the last panel, the transfer between
Oh.
from 2-year to 4-year, right? I'm on the panel.
Well, we are sort of the host
So I know
college
why I
for this
said
one,
something.
so I hope folks can come. That would be good. We wouldn't want Cobleskill to
Outnumber you.
outnumber us there. So, okay.
Thanks, Colleen.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
October 5th,
Oh,
well, October 5th inauguration. So hopefully you have responded to all the events. Is Saturday morning starting. There's a breakfast, and then the inauguration that starts at 9. Inauguration's at 11. There's a lunch following that, and then the gala starts at 5:30. So you need to RSVP so that Kathy knows your food selection. And
Or else.
got it. Yeah. So if you haven't RSVP'd, Colleen is going to be coming up to you in the next few minutes and asking your food selection. But it should be a good event. I really appreciate my staff, Colleen, and all the work that people are doing around campus, the invitations, the banners, just every little detail. It's quite a yeoman's work, and I'm thankful to everybody that's putting so much time and effort into it. It'll be a good reflection for our campus.
Anything else for the good of the order? Hearing nothing? Yes, sir?
I'll just add on, so the day after the inauguration, the Student Association has organized the world's largest soccer game, which hasn't been held for about a decade now. So if any of you would like to participate, the deadline to register is today. You can find the link on the Student Association's Campus Connection page. You get a free t-shirt. We'll be having the Dragon Rules drumline open things up on the game. Susan is going to do halftime. There's going to be fireworks. It's going to be a great time. Maybe I'll see some of you guys.
So what time is the game?
I believe it's at 6.
Then we were hoping you could talk about the pit run.
Pat, I have one thing when that's on.
Thank you,
Yes.
So I'd like to share with the council that on Friday evening before the inauguration is the Alumni of Distinction ceremony. And it's a tradition that we established 5 years ago at the 125th anniversary of the college. And at this particular event on Friday evening, October 4th, 20 alumni will be made alumni of distinction, one of whom is here this afternoon. It's Dr. David Brenner. So he will be made alumni of distinction at that time.
Congratulations.
We intentionally scheduled this so that the alumni of distinction, their families, their guests would also be here on Friday evening and then stay on Saturday and attend the inauguration. Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the Parisian family has a very big event that weekend. Do you want to talk about it?
Another community event
Yeah.
happening that weekend is the Pit Run, and it is the 26th annual running of a 10K race. Is the premier event. It's in honor of a fallen state trooper from this area who happened to was my husband at one time. But what is really unique about it is it does embrace the Oneonta campus and includes that's included in the 10K course, which I'm very pleased to say that is it in the morning, so it's not going to conflict with the soccer game. It's like, oh my goodness, we're going to be there. So that event is just a beautiful community day. That everyone goes to the park, and anyone that is in this area that really wants to kind of see the blend of the community and the college campus community and the local community. It's a really wonderful celebration of life. And the event itself starts at 10:45. It includes a local eatery, which is Brooks Chicken, and they cook right on grounds in the Niwa Park. And usually it is done and over. Everyone's done eating their chicken, and the park is pretty much being vacated by 1 p.m. So wake up early, get your little exercise in, then eat, rest a little, come back on up and play soccer and cheer everybody else on.
I think our wrestling team has been in every event, and I think
Oh my gosh.
they lead all organizations in raising money for the event. It's entertaining to watch the heavyweights try to run 10K. That's not their thing.
I was wondering, can you get the chicken without running?
Yes, you can, and it's a chicken dinner, and you can pay right there. Well,
Beautiful.
And the women's basketball team usually.
that's right, Daphne's girls come, and there's a couple others that come down and help clean up. So your Angie Eichler, who is a big gal on campus, is a diehard volunteer coordinator for the event, and a lot of the groups of through the sororities and fraternities come down and volunteer. So at any given time, you'll see a group of young people having fun, but also being extremely helpful, and it's a wonderful reflection. It's more than once been mentioned by people that live in Oneonta to say it's really nice that students come down off campus even early in the morning to join us. So one capacity or another.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'm trying to sign you up here for this soccer thing, Patrick.
Great, Dan. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
I'll see you all at the event tonight. I got to go meet the author right now, so excuse me. I have to leave for dinner.
Dinner is close to serve, so please help yourself to something to drink.
And I will